Star Wars Outlaws is on the precipice of release after 4 years of development. This is a big deal for the publisher, Ubisoft, as it's set to only have two big AAA releases in 2024. And no, Skull and Bones doesn't count because it's a quadruple A game. In this game, we see some of the best representation I've seen in games in a long time. This is the first game to so accurately represent a jawline that was so prevalent in 17th century nobility due to inbreeding. It has transformed Umberly Gonzalez into Umberly von Habsburg, which is truly something special in this day and age. But today we're going to go over some estimates for how much it costs to develop the game and how we, as mere commoners, can measure how well sales of the game are going. Hey gang, let's start out talking a little bit about the developer of Star Wars Outlaws, Massive Entertainment. So, Massive Entertainment started out in the late 90s. It came out with its first big game. It was Ground Control in the year 2000. Fun game. I played it when it launched. And in 2007, they came out with a game called World in Conflict. It had a really cool collector's edition that had a piece of the Berlin Wall with it. Really fun game. I enjoyed that a lot. Their next big title was Tom Clancy's The Division. And that came out in 2016 with a sequel in 2019. Their last game release was a game called Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which was not particularly good per the reviews. A lot of people that played the game reported having a lot of crashing, various bugs. Some people had issues where they were playing the game and then suddenly when they would go to relaunch it, it would tell them that to play that part of the game that they had saved in, they needed to go and buy the DLC. Not a particularly good rating on Steam right now. And there's already an issue with Star Wars Outlaws where if you paid to get early access to the game, you're being told to start over because there is a bug that corrupts your save file, which isn't a great start to the game. But now that history's out of the way, let us break down some of the estimates for how much it costs to develop a game and how many copies they would need to sell to break even. For this exercise, we're going to try and paint a best case scenario in terms of the cost of developing the game and a best case scenario in terms of sales so that we can get some rough estimates for numbers so that we as average people can determine how well the game is performing in sales versus the cost. So to start out with, the base price of the game is $70, which is an insane number already without bringing up the editions of the game that go up to $130. For today, we're only going to go off the base price of $70 for our math. And so when Ubisoft sells their game on Xbox or PlayStation, they have a 30% fee that goes to the platform. That means that every time that they sell a game on those platforms, they end up paying $21 to PlayStation or Xbox. However, Ubisoft also has Ubisoft Connect, which is where they are selling the PC version of the game. It is not on Steam for the launch of the game. And since Ubisoft controls that platform, the only thing that they have to pay for is the credit card processing fees. Those range from anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5%. For our math, we're going to say it's 2.5%, which means that when they go and sell a copy of their game on Ubisoft Connect, they're only paying $1.75 to the credit card processors, meaning that on PC, they've got almost the full $70 that they keep inside Ubisoft versus only getting about $48.99 for console. So with those sales margins out of the way, let us look at development costs for the game. So Massive Entertainment is based out of Malmö, Sweden, which is an area of Sweden that is more on the expensive side, but is quite cheap compared to where game studios are located in places like Washington or California. We get an idea through Glassdoor on how much an engineer ends up making at the company. It's about $80,000 to $150,000 US dollars per year. For all of these game companies, generally, your software engineers are going to have the highest salary amongst all of the disciplines that are at the studio. art and design end up making significantly less than a lot of these programmers. And per the last game, the Avatar game, the engineers only made up 13% of everyone that was credited to that game. Um, of those people in the credits, there were 581 individuals that worked at Massive Entertainment, and only 78 of them were under engineering. And that's going to be anywhere from junior to senior, had its leads in there as well. Those people will make up more money. Directors, of course, are always going to generally make pretty good money. Pretty much everybody else, it's going to be a lot lower. So with that, I am going to estimate that the cost of an average employee at Massive Entertainment averaged out as $110,000 per head count. This is going to cost, or this is going to account for their salary. It's going to cost for software expenses for licenses, hardware, and then their individual share for the office space that they all end up renting out. And for this particular location for this company, I looked at their job site, and pretty much everything is on site in Malmo, Sweden. We know that the game started development in late 2019, and we have heard public statements that the game has had about 600 people working on the game. But I can't find anywhere to get the starting size for the team when they started to work on it. So I put on my engineering hat and thought, how many people could you get onto the project at the start in like 2020 to really start going full bore into developing the game? And I figure, since Disney probably gave them a design documents to say this is what you have to do to keep in line with the IP of Star Wars, they already had that fleshed out. They could probably put a lot of artists onto the game immediately to start churning out a lot of the art for the game. Basically all the Imperial stormtroopers, TIE fighters, anything like that. Like, you could start doing that right away. Speed bikes. You could fit a lot of people on the game right away. Then you're going to also have pretty much all of your senior designers across the board coming in and deciding how the game is going to play. They probably had this already built out before they pitched the game to Disney. So it's just a matter of fleshing it out the rest of the way so that they could get people, the gameplay engineers, in there to start building those systems out. But I would estimate that they could easily put 100 people onto the project in that first year of 2020. So that is going to be the number that we are going to operate off of for the starting point for the team size. And from there, we're going to make some estimates that the team grew at a linear rate at about 125 people per year until it hit its zenith at 600 people in 2024. We're also going to assume that everyone that's working on it in 2024 is going to keep working on it to the end of the year for bug fixing and working on the various DLC that is going to be coming out as the game is out in production. With that, we are looking at an estimated development cost of $192.5 million. Estimated development costs out of the way. How do we as consumers find out about sales numbers? First off, if the sales numbers are really good, the publisher is just going to come out and say, this is how many units we sold. We sold like 2, 3, 5 million copies. That is something that, if it is true, they can go out and they can say it without penalty, and the investors are going to like it. It's going to drive up the stock price, and Ubisoft stock price is really, really terrible. But if we don't have a public announcement, there's something called the box slider method that we can use to make some estimates for what those sales numbers are. And the box slider method basically says, if you see a review for a game, you can assume that there are so many other people that have not reviewed the game that have purchased the game. So it'll be like one review counts for anywhere from like 20 to 60 purchases for that game. There's only one major issue with us running those numbers once the game comes out, which is we have the review counts for PlayStation, we have the review counts for Xbox, But on Ubisoft Connect, they don't allow you to review games because that would be pro-consumer, and we can't have that in an Ubisoft product. So they just want you to go there and they want you to buy whatever shit they have to sell. And that's that. They don't want you to make any reviews because a lot of their reviews would probably be negative. So I went in and I delved into their annual report to try and find out how many people were playing through Ubisoft Connect and making those purchases versus Steam. And the numbers aren't there. They, on the first page, talk about how they've got 138 million monthly active users for their games, and that PC players make up 32%, which is on page 11. But they don't say how many sales they make in Ubisoft Connect. They don't say how many sales they make through their subscription model, which gives me the impression that they don't get a lot of money through those services. I say that because if we look at another company like Games Workshop has a Warhammer Plus subscription that they sell, and it sells very well. So whenever they do their reports, they say, look at all the money that we made through our subscription service. And the investors are like, good job. You made all this money. Great. Good on you. And Ubisoft's not doing that. So I don't imagine that a lot of the PC players are playing on Ubisoft Connect. I imagine that most of them are happy to stick with Steam because for a lot of these Ubisoft games, they are released on Steam like 6 months later. But for doing our math, since we are giving the most generous assumptions to the developer for the purpose of this exercise, we are going to assume that everyone that is interested in buying the game will buy in through Ubisoft Connect into the Ubisoft ecosystem so that they get a sale on that platform. So for all of the reviews that we get, we're going to assume that 32% of them will, how's the word for the math? I had to use ChatGPT to figure out how to get the math in. But basically, we're going to take all of our reviews. We're going to assume that that is 68% of all of our reviews. And then the remainder, this magical 32% number that they cite in the annual report, that is the guesstimate we're going to use for how many reviews would be generated if Ubisoft Connect allowed you to review their games. And once we get that input, we can run our numbers to figure out how many reviews that we need to see for the game to break even. So if we look at this little matrix here, this is just accounting for the console sales prices, which is the worst of the two. And if we look at just recouping the 2024 costs, which is the most expensive year for development, we would need, at the low end of 20 purchases per review, about 70,000 reviews total. However, if they're getting 60 purchases per review, it's only a little over 20,000. And if we expand that to the entire cost of the game, we are looking at anywhere from 195,000 on the low end and 65,000 on the high end. So this means that if we want to break even for the total cost of the game, we would need to see 40,000 reviews between PlayStation 5 and Xbox for us to get the numbers at 60 purchases through review for them to break even. They get the profit of about like $2 million. Again, this is the best case scenario. A lot of these websites where they give you these Boxlighter factor calculators, they are making the assumption that for the year 2024, you're only seeing about 24 purchases per review. And in that case, they would need a total of 100,000 reviews instead of just 40,000 across both Xbox and PlayStation 5 for our math to work out and generate a profit. Hey guys, I made it through pretty much the entirety of editing and then realized I forgot to add in that all these estimates do not include the cost of licensing the Star Wars IP from Disney. and it does not include any of the marketing spend that Ubisoft has made. The marketing team did fly out a bunch of people to try and butter them up and Disney World trips so that they gave them favorable reviews. And they've also talked about spending a ton of money in general. If this is a large spend for marketing, it's not that difficult to spend $50 to $150 million on various marketing avenues. I'm not a marketing specialist, so I'm not going to make those estimates, but just keep in the back of your mind that those are the levels of money that are spent on marketing for these kinds of products. So when you look at a break even point, I just talked about the development cost side of things, but there is the additional cost for Ubisoft where they need to make back the marketing spend and the cost of acquisition of the Star Wars IP so that they can, as a whole, break even instead of just massive entertainment in the studio breaking even on their end. And yeah, I will get back to past me that's a lot more awake to finish the video. I've linked the spreadsheet in the description if you want to check the work, or you can duplicate it and then you can plug in your own numbers just to play around with it. I am personally not a fan of Ubisoft. I do not want to see this game or Assassin's Creed Shadows to succeed because I really do not like this pricing model. I have concerns that other companies are going to look at this and say, oh, well, now we get to start charging $70 for a game and 130 for this edition here, or even more. And we're already seeing that in Civilization 7, which is really unfortunate to see. But no matter what my opinion on the matter is, the free market will get to decide on August 30th, 2024, if it is worth the cost. If you want to buy the game, buy it. It's your money. If you don't buy it. Everyone will vote with their wallets, and we will get to see at the end of the day if $70 becomes the new $60. But that is all I have for tonight. I appreciate you giving me your time, and I hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.